go through a tutorial of the steel mace 10 to 2 exercise. This is one of the most fundamental exercises you can do with the steel mace. It's going to be really important to get very comfortable with this movement. If you are looking to sort of expand, what you can do with the mace, some of the more momentum and ballistic type movements are going to depend on you having an understanding of how physics works with the mace, and the 10 to 2 is a great way to start. I'm using a 10-pound steel mace for this demonstration. I recommend, 7 to 10 pounds is probably a good starter weight. Too much lighter than 7 is going to be a challenge to sort of feel the weight as you need to for this exercise. And if you go too heavy, then you're going to risk injury. So I definitely recommend staying with a light weight until you develop some comfort and endurance with this technique before you start advancing to heavier weights. So again, as I said, I'm going to start teaching this from behind the back. You can teach this and start from the racked position here. I find it's a little easier to start from behind the back. So if you haven't checked it out, I have a video on the pendulum, and I will post that in the description below so that you can get an understanding of this technique. But what I want to do is start my pendulum from behind the back here. Okay? Keeping the hands pinned behind the head, keeping a consistent arc with the mace. It's traveling nice and parallel to my hips. And then when I'm ready, after I've built some good momentum, increasing the height of the mace, I'm going to pull this over my shoulder to the opposite hip. Okay, so you see it sort of coming shoulder to hip here. And I'm going to send it back in the other direction and bring it to the opposite hip. Keeping those hands low. If I bring this too high, this becomes really difficult to control. So from back here, I pull this over the shoulder, and then I want to imagine I'm putting the bell into my back pocket, and I pull through. So a common mistake that we see with the steel mace, and I'll cover a few more of those here later in the video, is people maybe they start from here, and they start to throw the mace behind them, and then it swings and it hits them. Okay, so we want to set ourselves up for success here, and make sure that wherever I place the mace, it's going to travel on a consistent path here. Okay, so it's always going in the same spot. My hands consistently go to the back of my head here. Now, it's important when we're doing this, so at this time I'm going to start sort of here, just to sort of show that if I'm in this position with the mace kind of at a 45-degree angle, if I do nothing, it sort of just falls. Okay? So I want to use gravity in that case to help me with this technique. So when I'm here, I'm going to lead with my hands, I'm going to push with my hands, and I'm going to let it fall. Push, pull. Push, pull. Push, pull. Okay? Bringing those hands low. But notice that the mace never really comes to this 12 o'clock position. If you were going into a full 360, I would. But it's kind of staying out to the side at that 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock position. I find it can be helpful to sort of look at where the mace is going to end up so that I can be consistent with where I'm placing it. But later on, as I get more comfortable, I don't need to necessarily do that. So I'm here. Pull, rack, pull, rack, pull, and rack. So here are some things that are common mistakes or just common errors that people make when they're learning the 10 to 2 that I want to take a moment to address. One of the first things that can be kind of dangerous and put you at risk of maybe injuring your shoulders is people start okay and they start sort of right here, and then they just kind of let the mace tip, 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 and then they let their hands kind of play catch up here. All right, so if I turn to the side here, they let it tip, 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 and their hands like, oh God, they got to catch up. If I do it from the front, here, here. So what we want to do instead is lead with our hands. So if I'm going to start from this 12 o'clock position here, rather than behind my back, there's going to be a push, a lift with the bottom hand here as I start to push towards that 10 or 2 o'clock position, and then I let it fall. So my hands go directly behind my head at that point, but I'm leading with my hands. That's very important here. So don't let the bell lead you, lead with your hands. So push, pull. Push, pull. The other thing that I want to talk about that's, again, a common error is the hand position behind the head. So quite often, particularly when people are starting out, they will get here, and I'm going to choke down my mace just for a little bit, and they will kind of do like a halo around their head. This, common exercise with the kettlebell is kind of that kettlebell halo. This is not really a halo motion. What I want to do instead is bring my hands to the back of my head. So they are here, and they stay there, okay? What we want to avoid is we don't want our hands to be shifting kind of all over the place here. So I want to develop some muscle memory and instinct to just put my hands right behind my head, right behind my head, right behind my head. That's where they go every time, and I let the mace fall naturally as I pull it through. I don't want to try and control this movement, which leads me to the last thing that I'll talk about, which is not trusting physics to do its job. So using a mace can be intimidating, particularly when you're first starting out and getting used to some of the more ballistic and momentum-based movements. So what people naturally try to do is they try to slow down the bell, which you don't want to do. And so what that ends up looking like is they might get everything correct. They might have their push, they might know where to put their hands, but then they're just sort of death gripping this thing and trying to pull it over the shoulder here. And what I want to focus on is once I'm here, I just let it fall. I'm only applying enough grip to prevent the mace from flying out of my hand. So otherwise my hands are pretty relaxed here. And that lets this natural swing happen and allows you to focus more on the pull of this movement. Pull, rather than control, brace, be scared, that sort of feeling, okay? And I'm bringing my hands back down here in front. So push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. From the side, push, pull, push, pull. Pull, letting this pass very close to my back, all right? So when I push, I don't want to go push and then let it swing into me here, or something like this, okay? I want the mace to travel on a parallel plane, or parallel to my hips, okay, every time, here. It's like I'm putting the bell into my back pocket and pulling it through. So those are just some common mistakes, common errors, things that you want to look for if you're watching yourself in the mirror. They will help you to prevent injury and just overall will smooth out your 10 to 2s over time. But these do take a lot of repetition, so thousands, hundreds of thousands of reps of the 10 to 2. Again, it's one of the most fundamental basic exercises with the steel mace. It's going to be really important to get comfortable with this movement if you want to start exploring some of the more advanced ballistic type movements that you'll find with this tool. But that's going to cover it for just some of the common errors. If you have any questions or you want to send me a video to sort of see how you're doing, I'm happy to take a look, give you some feedback, but feel free to reach out.